Hey Jen, how's it going? How's the hurricane?
Well, we're faring better than you are. We just have rain right now,
Don't
so
even get me started. Don't even get me started. So last September we had a category 3 come through Valdosta
right.
and tore down a bunch of trees. I didn't have power for 8 days, 7 days, 8 days, something like that. And so we just had that Debbie come through and it dodged. It went south of us, but I still don't have power. I haven't had power for 2 days now.
Yeah.
And so, like I was telling you, we're at the end of the line, and our neighborhood is one of the more historic neighborhoods. So, like, mine
Right.
was built in 1957. We have all these great lots and trees behind us. They fall down, even though you think that that happened last September. All of them that could fall down fell down. Oh no, we
There's
got
still
more.
more.
We got tons more that can fall down in the middle of the road. Last night, I had to call the cops because right where my corner is, it's Country Club Drive. It's really busy. They just put up strands of caution tape so people wouldn't go down and run into a tree that's in the middle of the road. Well, it's nighttime. You come up,
Yeah.
it's not like like there's a glimmer or anything to it. I had to call them. We saw these two cars come up and there's just like on top of
Oh,
each other. Just one slammed on the brake, the next one slammed on the brake. I was like, there's going to be a wreck. So we had to call and get them to go out and all they did was put up cones. And I was like,
that's what I
well,
was gonna say. The cones, probably.
at least they're reflective.
Yeah.
I'll give them credit for that. So like just getting on line. So I have power at work, but I don't have
Yeah.
power at the
At
house. And
home.
so I'm back where I normally do the recording, and luckily we have power and internet here. But you're also feeling it just
Yeah.
there,
Mine's like my internet's going in and out now because the storm is like here. So it's so
which is
yeah.
crazy because we don't live that far apart.
No, we don't. But I mean, with these hurricanes, again, like they go whatever way they're gonna go. We're so used to it by now, like
Yeah.
whatever. And I mean, ours is mainly just rain and wind right now, so nothing super bad yet, but it's supposed to start getting bad tonight. So I just really need this is an update for those of you because we haven't recorded since this has happened. But when I was flying home from Philadelphia, we showed up at the airport at 3:30 in the morning
Right.
and our flight was canceled along with a lot of our other friends at the airport that were there at 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah, your friends that you met up with, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so then we were smart enough that I was like, we're just going to check our bags and we're going to go back to our Airbnb because we don't know when we're going to get on a plane. The terminal was just like, so it was a nightmare. And so we check our bags, we go back to the Airbnb and sleep. And we went and got brunch in downtown Philly and went back to the airport at noon and get to the airport and they delayed our flight almost immediately as soon as we get through security. So that got pushed back 2 hours. And obviously, when you're in these situations at the airport, you start hearing everybody around you, all the horror stories that
Right,
like
of course. Yeah.
they had been there since Friday and like some of them were trying to get to California and
Well,
couldn't.
the
And
irony of the whole thing is you were going to drive, but you're like, I got
yeah,
this cheap ticket. I might as well
yeah,
take it. What could go
yeah.
wrong?
I mean, like that was the
What
moment
could
where
go
Brendan and I
wrong?
were like, why did we do this? But we were actually really lucky because we were able to, get on a plane to Atlanta. They ended up delaying. We were gonna miss our connection from Atlanta to Augusta, and they ended up delaying that flight like 15 minutes, and we ran
Right.
across three terminals in Atlanta to get to our terminal, and we ended up getting on the flight and getting home. And then the two flights after us into Augusta got canceled.
Oh,
Well,
geez.
here's the best part of the story. We had four pieces of luggage that we checked.
Right.
And
Never check luggage. We got to, you just, that's the new
I
norm now.
mean,
That's the new
sometimes
norm.
you have to. Evie and I went shopping. There may or may not be one piece of luggage that just has the clothes that we bought in it.
Oh my
But
goodness.
anyway, so yeah, this is now 48 hours since us landing, and
Right.
we only have one piece of luggage back. The other, we just found out the other three are on a flight currently to Augusta that like we've been watching the flight being like, please don't cancel it. But the funny thing is when we showed up to yesterday I had to go to the airport to get Evie's one piece of luggage, and there was more luggage sitting in our tiny little Augusta airport than is normally there during the Masters.
Right.
because they were so backed up. There was probably 200 pieces of luggage just sitting there because they kept canceling
So
flights.
did you take a
Everybody.
couple extra bags and just see what you got?
That's actually, I should have thought about that, but no, I didn't.
No.
But yeah, so fingers crossed. Our final three pieces of luggage are supposed to be here this afternoon, so we're praying. But yeah, travel anymore. Just I don't know about you, but this
It's
is something that I was thinking about because of the Olympics. That like it's a nightmare now. Like you are always rolling dice, praying that you
I
don't get a
don't
flight canceled.
I don't check a bag ever.
I
Ever.
mean, it's just like it's not even the check bag. It's the delays, it's the
Yes.
cancellations.
Well,
It's
here's
like,
the thing. Like this, you can answer this, and then we'll move on to the Olympics. But I find whenever I'm at the airport and something goes wrong like that, I actually just relax. Like
yeah,
I don't really. I mean, I'll get stressed out about certain things. Like whenever my wife and I were flying to Europe, we were going on a anniversary trip, and we had to make it because we had a cruise we were going to, and we made
yeah,
it to the cruise with like 1 hour left. That was stressful. But we were sitting on the plane for 3 hours with thunderstorms in Atlanta. But I
yeah,
mean, outside of that, usually I just calm down. I'm like, there's nothing I can do.
yep,
Get me on the next flight.
yeah,
Let's just go. And usually the person that you're dealing with responds well to that, like
yeah.
not yelling at you.
I definitely have turned into that person just because of the fact that like there really is nothing that you can do
No.
about it. And you have to you just get to a point where you're like, it's in God's hands now.
Yes,
Like
it's out of my
here
hands.
we go, whatever. And you find the nearest bar and you get a beer and you sit your butt down and watch the Olympics like
Watch the
we did.
Olympics. Enjoy. And I mean, while I was waiting for you to get on, I was just watching the wrestling. Like I was like, all right, here we
Yeah,
go.
yeah, that's what you gotta
Which
do.
something interesting just happened on the Olympic wrestling that does have something to do with what we're going to talk about tonight.
Mhm.
Um, there's a wrestler, Luis from Cuba, that just won his fifth gold in the same
Wow.
event, five straight Olympics, five
Wow.
gold medals for heavyweight Greco-Roman wrestling. Now he's the only Olympic champion of five gold medals in the
That's
same event.
crazy.
So think about what Ledecky just did.
Yep.
Now, if she can do it again in Los
LA.
Angeles, then she'll
Yeah.
tie this guy. But
Yep.
he went to six Olympics, and the last five he's won gold medal in heavyweight.
That's even more insane because just of the how that tears the human body down.
Well, here's
Like
okay. So here's
you're
an
like physically wrestling like swimming. Yeah, it's really
it's
hard, but
water,
like you're not getting wrestled to the ground by someone.
right? And
Like,
here's the crazy part. So the last Olympics he finished, and then he didn't wrestle for years. And this
yeah.
last spring he's like, I think I can do it. And they trained for a year and didn't go to any competitions, showed up to the Olympics, ran the gold medal, left his shoes on the mat, which signifies he retired, and he's done. But
Wow.
for 4 years, he hasn't wrestled at all at a
Yeah.
competition, and he still is that good. He came back.
That's insane.
Both of
Oh
his
my
brothers
God.
were Olympians. His wife was an Olympian. I mean, they live in
Yeah.
Cuba, so let's pity him a little bit. But crazy. All right,
Wow.
so what we need to do for this episode is we need to recap the ninth and final night because we
Yes.
haven't done the recap on that, which by far was the best night of
The
swimming. I
best
think
night
it was
by
awesome.
far. By far.
And then we're going to do our awards and our end of the Olympic kind of, hey, this is what we think about. So let's go over that. We start off with the women's 50 freestyle.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about the women's 50 freestyle at
That
all?
that was probably the one where I was just like, yeah.
Well, you're probably like, okay,
Yeah,
let's
then
go.
I was like, okay, whatever. I don't want to see this. Keep going. Like,
Yeah, let's get
we
it
all
over
knew
with
what was
quickly.
gonna happen. Like, yay, we knew who was gonna win. I wasn't surprised.
Showstrom is amazing.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? She is going to get an award from me tonight because that was just incredible across the board. When we picked best swimmer, she's not my best swimmer, but she's going
yeah.
to get an award like best old swimmer, maybe. Anyways, she's 30. Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah, I was still an adult when she was born. Anyways, so she does pretty well. Mick Harris from Australia comes in there. Yang from China, and then
Yeah.
Gretchen Walsh comes in fourth.
Right.
I just don't think that she had the turnover that she had in the semifinals. If you
No.
look at her time, she does fine. Again, a lot of these women were adding in the final. right? So
Mhm.
Sjostrom and Walsh both add the
Yep.
silver and bronze drop a little bit, but we're talking hundreds of a second. And it's hard
Right.
because Sjostrom breaks the Olympic record
Yeah.
semifinals. So what are you going to do? Come back and break it again? I hope so. But if you
Yeah.
don't, you can still win a gold medal, walk away with an Olympic record. You still have the world record. So you might as well just say, like, thank you very much. I can retire now. But I mean, I was happy. I thought it was a great race.
Mhm.
I think it was entertaining, but it wasn't as entertaining as the second race.
Mm.
Second race of the night. Bobby Fink comes in.
So this is a really funny story that you're gonna love because by the time Bobby Fink was swimming, I was sitting in the terminal waiting to board,
Right.
and Evie and I are watching this on my phone,
Okay.
and we like moved away from every because it was just complete chaos with boarding other flights. So we moved away and we're kind of like, oh, there were only a few people around us. Well,
Right.
like halfway through, when you're seeing that he's ahead of the world record line,
By
like
a lot.
normally, yeah, and normally in a distance event, right? Like to be that far halfway through in front of the world record, you're like, he's gonna get it. Like, unless he totally tanks this,
Well,
he's on pace.
then again, Sun had the last 200 that Sun used to bring back in 2012 was ridiculously fast.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
for
So
sure.
there is a little bit of a setup there.
Right. So we're sitting in the terminal watching this, and Evie and I are like, he gets halfway, and we're going, oh my gosh, this is really gonna happen. Like, he's
Yeah.
gonna
Right.
do this. If he can hang on to this, he's gonna do it. And like, we start cheering and screaming, and all of these people start looking at us, and they came behind us to watch on my phone, and they were like, what? I don't understand. What is this? What's going on? And like, everybody started cheering into the bar behind us. They had it on, and everybody started because we started like freaking out. And it's like, I don't think most people don't really understand swimming, right? But
Right.
everybody wants America to win.
Of
And so,
course.
like, everybody started cheering and we're like so excited. And they didn't really understand that, like, what was actually about to happen. So
Right.
this by far, like this was my favorite race of the night. I know we're in the front end of this explaining it, but like as a distance swimmer, and he's such a good guy, it
Yes.
was just, oh my gosh, it was amazing. And for him to bring it home the way he did, like you said, I mean, that record was, I mean, that was solid back end swimming for that, world record. And he really, I just didn't, going into it, I didn't know if he was going to have a back end left because we were on the final day to be able
Right.
to do that. And
And
he just cranked it.
well, yeah. Well, we had been talking about he has the same script and he needed to flip the script. He
Yep.
needed to go after it. And I think my feeling, and I have nothing to back this up or justify this feeling whatsoever, but we have the gold medal counts.
Yep.
He's got to win gold. Now, he wants to win gold and he wants to do something different. And Polisteri from Italy, we know can have a back half because what
Yep.
happened in the 800? He's there. He's a former
Right.
Olympic champion. He has been sprinting next to him. So I think, Bobby Fink goes into it going, okay, look, if I do the same thing, it's going to be like the 800. It's going to be a dogfight, and I came in and I didn't win it. So I need to get out a little bit ahead. I also need to get this ahead for a little bit of motivation is the gold medal count, which we've never lost. Even though this was the lowest amount of gold medals that we've ever had for an Olympics in swimming in modern history or since they've been
Right.
doing the tallies or whatever. So, I think that there's extra motivation there and Team USA is behind him and he goes after it. And then, the commentator kept saying, okay, well, Sun is so fast on the back half. I'm like, time out. If Bobby Fink is ahead of that line with 100 to go, if he's ahead or with that line with 50 to go,
Yep.
he's faster than Sun on the back half.
For
Period. And I
sure.
remember watching Sun. And the other thing about it is, I'm so glad he took that record down because I can't stand Sun.
Agreed.
Okay, so if you don't know the story, real quick, this guy is an unbelievable distance swimmer. He starts breaking all the world records from 400 on. He could also won the 200, I think, at some point,
Yep.
world championships. Nobody could touch him. Banned substance, 4 years
Yep.
out. Comes
Yep.
back, starts dominating again, banned substance, tested in his blood. So he asked for a second sample to be done. They go in to take the second sample. He smashes the second sample so it can't be tested. So now he gets a lifetime ban and he's out.
Yeah.
Because he knows he's been known as, and he was training in Australia with a coach that was known for having
Using it.
athletes that were on performance enhancing drugs. So it's all this, and so his record's always still been there because
Yep.
in 2012, right before he popped the test, he makes it, right?
Yep.
So now it's like, okay, an American comes in, takes down China, takes down the world record, puts us even with Australia for the gold, sets the world record, and he does it, and you're on pins and needles because you don't know if he can do it or not, and you just watch Italy just kind of come back
Yep.
and sit back. It was like watching Ledecky in the 800 where she
Yeah.
finally just went and said, I got to pull ahead. I can't
Yeah.
believe it. Unbelievable
And I
race.
mean, my coaching heart was like that was the most ridiculous thing too. I definitely cried in front of strangers because when they showed Anthony Nesty, like
Tearing
that
up.
man is like, I mean, he is solid. You never
Yes.
see him like break emotion. And when they showed him like crying, I mean, I was done. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh,
Well,
like
think about
how
it.
much it meant to him as a coach to watch, such a good kid. Again, that's the thing that, when you've got such a good swimmer that is a good human being and is so great for the sport, and you watch them do something like this as a coach, it gives you chills. And watching Anthony Nessie on the side, just sobbing like a child
Yeah.
was.
Well, I mean, think about it. How much risk did Nesty take by saying, we got to go after this?
Yeah.
How much risk
Yeah.
did Bobby Fink take by saying, we got to go after this? Now, let's do this on a strategy. And I was sitting there with my daughter and my wife, and after you're
Yeah.
going to relax, but then you're going to have to catch me. And right as he gets caught, my wife and my daughter goes, do you think he's done? I'm like, no, watch, he's going to take off. And then
Yeah.
he takes off. So think of it like a rubber band, right? He stretches the rubber band, okay, and then he can relax. So his rubber band is relaxed. The other guys are relaxed. Now they've stretched, and as soon as they get to the point where they're stretched, to their capacity, right when they get touched and they're like, okay, now I can relax because I've caught him, he takes off again. So now you're just stretching the rubber band more and more.
Right.
So whereas he went fast, relaxed, and then could go fast again, they just had to build and keep going, and they couldn't stay with him. And that's why you
Yeah.
can play chess, is because if you can get that lead and then maintain, they're going to have to put more effort to catch you. And then when you take off, they're going to have to even put more pressure on themselves to catch you. And he basically burned them
Right.
out by going out quickly and then being able to settle in after that.
Yep. Yep.
So
I
it was
mean,
absolutely, I mean, it was
that was my
wonderful.
favorite race of the night. It was
Yes.
it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing.
Yes. I
So,
mean,
all right, let's go to the next one.
okay, I guess I could stay on that race for a while. That was a good one. All right. So now we have the men's 4x100 medley relay.
Yep.
Okay. I was nervous about this. Obviously, we've never lost that. We've been the gold medal list this entire time. And China comes in, they win the gold medal. We come in second, but it was redemption time.
Yeah.
This was absolute Caleb Dressel redemption time
Yes.
because he went 49-4 on the relay and just
Yeah.
smoked it. So all
Yeah.
the questions that we had before, we don't know what was going on in the background, but he said it's relay time. I've got to step up, put me on the relay, let's go.
Yeah.
And he carried us. If he doesn't do that, he went 49-4. France went 49-5. Okay. And then we go on the end. Armstrong goes 47-1 and France goes 47-5. And we beat them by 37 hundredths of a second.
Yep.
So if Dressel goes what he was doing in the 100 fly and adds another second, we're going to be bronze medalist maybe,
Yep.
because Germany was, yeah, we'll probably be a bronze medalist there. Oh, I'm
Right.
sorry. It was 0.7 seconds. So he had,
Yep.
if he loses a second, we lose the medal. He needed to
Right.
show up.
Right. It was it was absolutely amazing. And I think the thing is that we all knew, I mean, China was going to get it.
Right.
They're stacked in a way that we're not happy about, and we'll talk about that later because that's part of my notes.
Yes.
Um, but which is very unfortunate. But it was so great to see Caleb Dressel have that speed and power again that we know he has. And like you said, I think we're not going to know for a while what was going on in the background or if they ever will really
Right.
talk about it. I know there's already some athletes that have come out and said what's been going on, not just with him, but within the Olympic Village, within people
Right.
getting sick. COVID
Right.
was much more of a thing than people realize
There were
on
like
the
9 Australian swimmers that had COVID, and one couldn't swim earlier, and then she swam on the relay that won the gold
yeah.
medal. She's my
Yeah,
comeback swimmer of the meet, by the way.
Adam Peaty had it and didn't
Yes.
swim for 5 days. Like, I mean, it was, yeah. So, I say that because of the fact that we've talked about throughout all of this how you don't always know what's going on in the background. And yes, there's disappointments when you're like, this person can go faster than what we've just seen. What's happening? Why are they not doing it? And Caleb Dressel showed up. He showed up when they needed him. And I
Right.
even think Armstrong, I mean, he
Yes.
held his own. And
Yes, he
everyone
did.
was like, when they saw that name, there was so many people I saw on social media that were like, what are you thinking? Why is he, why? Why?
Because
And they obviously knew.
Alexi added from prelims to semifinals to finals in the
Yep.
100 freestyle, and Armstrong didn't. And Armstrong showed up on the first relay.
Yep. For
He was
sure.
he was the one that made the difference in the 4x100 relay.
Yep, for sure. So, I mean, I don't really think that that was something that,
Now, it was a
anybody
good
should have
call.
been questioning if you had looked before that point what he was doing.
Right.
So, I mean, it was just a phenomenal relay and Murph did what he needed to do. He looked really good. I mean,
Nick Fink looked
all
good.
yeah, Nick Fink looked great. He held it and so it was a great relay. I was excited for it. We'll we'll save the rest of my opinion till the end.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, Pon from China comes back and goes 45.9, right?
Yeah.
Which beats Lizak's 46.06, which was the fastest relay split of all time. But he did it the same way that Lizak did. He sat on somebody's wave, came back
Yeah.
on the second half. I'll give him credit because he's the one Chinese swimmer I think that was on there that wasn't popped for drugs back in the day. And
Correct.
so not there were two other ones that we can talk about later, but
Yep.
he was not, and I'll give him credit for that. He's the world record holder there as well.
Yeah.
All right, so we move on to the women's medley relay,
Yeah.
and this is right up there with Bobby Fink. This was an amazing swim, absolutely
I
amazing
did
swim.
not,
Some
I'm going to
smackdown.
start by saying this. I did not think that we were going to end up as far ahead as we
Oh
did.
no, oh we
That
cried.
was by the second leg, I was going, what is going on?
Right.
Because, most of those other relay teams, they had, medalists on them that were, next to us. So I was like, I was like, what's going on in the background? And
And if
I
it,
mean, I gotta give the shout out. Like I said, this was another redemption thing, right? It was redemption for Reagan, and it was redemption for Lily because you really got to see her the last, like, I'd say 25 meters of that, you saw her stroke again
yes,
that she didn't have. And it was that really powerful race, great, that makes her amazing at that
yes.
brushstroke. She looked good again. So, I overall, again, that was what a way to end it. I mean, it was like icing on the cake for sure.
Well, I mean, think about it this way. Here's the crazy part, right? So Reagan Smith sets the Olympic record at 57:28. Lily King has the fastest 100 breaststroke split at 104.9.
Yeah.
The closest to her is China at 105. No, I'm sorry, Japan at 105.0. And then
Yeah.
the next one is China at 105.7. So
Yeah.
that's the one that busted it open. And then you
Yep.
come back with the fastest split ever at 55:03. The next one to her was 55.5, 55.7. And then everybody else is 56 or 57. And then you go 52.4. There's only two women that beat Husk, which is going to be Molly O'Callaghan for Australia and
Yep.
Yang for China, who came in silver and bronze. I mean, across the board, it's almost as if all the nerves went away. It's like,
Yeah.
we got to get this done. And
Yep.
the stands are going crazy for them.
Yep.
Everybody's like, now we have it. And then they just crushed it. It was a great
Yeah.
way to put the, to wrap the whole thing up.
Icing on the cake.
Icing on the cake, whatever, any kind of metaphor you want to throw in there, it's going to work totally fine.
Yeah, yeah,
Bow
it
on
was. It
the
was
present.
amazing. It was a great end that I think we needed as USA Swimming
Right.
to finish out, the week. And who's to say, like, again, once everybody has time to analyze it and, we get to see what really was going on, why some of the things happened that they happened that didn't go our way, or,
Right.
people didn't perform how we thought they would. Um, I think it was a great passing of the torch. I think there was a lot of great young talent that stepped up and did amazing things. I think a lot of our, leaders stepped up when they were needed. So I'm really looking forward to LA, to be honest,
Right.
because I think there's a lot of people that are going to come back and probably be better than ever. And I think that there was a lot of them that, just barely missed it, that are going to kill it when we get there. Give them 4 more years under the belt. They're going to be ready. So, I'm excited for that. There's a lot of newbies that I think this was a good setup to move forward to our home games coming up.
Yeah, and I think that remember, in the odd years we have the World Championships, and then
Yep.
the other even year we have Pan Pacs, or
Yep.
Pan Am Games. And so you have a lot of different, and you have World University Games, you have Junior Worlds, you have Junior Pan Ams, you have a lot of opportunity that even if they don't make the A team and go to World Championships, they can go to Junior Worlds because of their age, and they can get a lot of experience that way. And so it's going to be interesting to see how we form. I think that for so long, I would say starting with 2008 Beijing, going into London, and then coming out of Rio, it was, if you make if you win, if you make the event at trials, you're going to make the finals. You're going to put yourself in a
Right.
position to make it. It was a foregone conclusion, and it was only certain events where you were like, I don't think we can get a gold. 100 breaststroke for the men's. Adam Peaty is going to kill it. We're all going for second place there. Fine. We get that. There's certain individuals that way, but for the most part, as a team, we just rolled in there. And Australia was struggling at different times through there. I mean, they had
Yeah.
some great performances. They always do. And I'm not bagging on them by any stretch of the imagination. It just wasn't as close as it was this time.
Well, and by far, I would say too, their women immensely outperformed their men.
Yes.
Like, the women were ready, the men not so much.
And it used to be, so starting in 2000 Sydney Olympics, the men and women did really well for Australia because they were at home. They did extremely well, but the men kind of outshone the women a little bit there.
Yeah.
And you have the dominance of the men in 2004, 2008. It's kind of like a little bit of a passing there. And the women in Australia have just developed a whole lot better than the men have recently. And it ebbs and flows. So it's not nothing anybody's going to do. It just ebbs and flows. But I'm saying the women for Australia I give them like the team title for best performances across the board,
For sure.
best as a unit because they outshowed everybody. They
Yeah.
as a unit. I was every time they got up on the relay, you're like, they're in it. They're going to get a medal. They're in it. Let's see where they go from there.
Yeah.
I was quite impressed with them. And if they continue doing that, it's going to be a great battle because I feel as though the US now looks at this and says, okay, I can make it, but I've got to really be prepared for the Olympics. It's not like
Yeah.
I can walk in there and just really do well. And it's interesting. My wife, as a wrap up, she says, you know what she liked about it, and she's like, the world won medals. It
Yeah.
wasn't just Australia and the US winning most of the medals, and then everybody else's cleanup. So you'll have a French relay, 4x100 relay, or the British. Their relays the last couple quadrennials has done really well. So you have those individual races where you have people that are standing out, but for the most part, it's just Australia, the U.S., China a little bit, and that's the way it goes. Here, there's 128 different athletes from swimming that got medals, and it was for my wife. She's like, it was great to see so many different people from so many different areas coming in and battling it out.
So I'm going to say something really controversial here
Oh boy,
that we've talked about before. I am wondering after this, because of that exact point, what are university coaches, how they are going to handle this now, because most of those athletes that did get those medals from other countries
right?
are connected to our universities.
Yes, and I don't
They
think the
train here, they train with our teams. They're US, they're a product of us,
right,
which great. We love that we're helping other people. But then when we look at this circumstance, for instance, Summer McIntosh, we know she doesn't train in Canada. We
Mm,
know she's not going to school in Canada. We
right,
know same thing, with our boy Leon. We know who trained him. We
right,
know where he came from. He's Bob Bo.
right.
And so I wonder because, as you said, there was so many other countries that were winning, but when you go and look at who won them, if you look at where they go to school, if you look at
Right.
where their club team is, they're in America. They're not in France. They're not in, Australia's a different.
Coaches are going to care all that much.
Yeah,
Whenever I was at Georgia, the way that there's certain coaches that say, I'm going to go find international talent because they're easier to bring in. They're going to come to
right.
us anyways, and they seek that out, whether they're from another country, and then they can recruit better in another country or
Yep,
not. Usually the philosophy that, Jack Bowerly had was if I can find an American that fast, I'm going to go with the American, but if I can't, I got to win. You know what I
right.
mean? So there's going to be that. The second thought I had was a conversation I had with Aaron Pearsall, and I said
Mhm.
to him, in 2008 you dominated in 2004, you dominated in 2008. Um, you were winning the Olympic gold medal like 3 seconds off your best time, which is the world record. And he goes,
Yeah,
yeah, I knew that going into 2008, if I was 5 seconds off my best time in certain events, that I could win it. The
yeah.
200 backstroke. I said, what's the one thing that you wish you had in your career that would have made you even better? And he said it, and it didn't come across as cocky at all because he's just not a cocky person. But he goes, better competition.
Yeah.
Because he said he didn't lose a race for 7 years, any backstroke race,
Yeah,
and
that's
50,
insane.
100, or 200. And so he's like, if I had somebody else like Kraselberg in 2000 that was pushing me, I think I could have gone a lot faster. And then in 2009, he starts getting pushed, and he sets the world record in 2009 in the 200 backstroke. And the rest is history. So I think that for the good of the sport, it's good that people are going to Australia and the United States and they're getting as fast as they are because it pushes everybody forward. Yes, it
Right.
does. It's not advantageous to our gold medal count in our silver medal count or medal count in general, but it's
Yeah.
good for the sport. And I think that we need to be there. And the third thought is something that a lot of people don't know, but there are some countries that punish their swimmers when they come to the United States and train.
Hmm.
I could give story after story after story of athletes that I know from all different universities that when they come to the United States to train, if they go back and want to make a team, they have to be so much better than everybody else at back home because they're seen as not traitors, but they're seen as going over there to get better at swimming. How come you come back and you're not going to take our coaches, our facilities? It's not from us. You're not
Yeah.
really our. So it's kind of this catch-22. I go to the United States and I'm not seen as necessarily a foreign swimmer because I train in Austin or Sarasota or Berkeley or wherever it is, Stanford, Georgia, you name it. But back home, I'm also not seen as fully from my country because I've trained someplace else. So
Yeah.
they're really trying to go, I need to get over there to get as fast as I can and give myself the opportunity. And I've got to fight because I know of swimmers that have not made teams or at the last second switched out just because they'd been training in the United States. And
Right.
so it's
Yeah.
it's kind of that's a whole nother
It
issue.
is.
And I think that you're
That's why
right,
I
it's
said the
controversial.
controversy. And I heard it. The thing is that I heard it so many times,
Yes.
and I heard it from people too. Like when we were in the airport, and they said about Marshad. They showed Bob Bowman and Michael Phelps, and they were like, "Oh, well, he trained at Arizona State with them." And like one of the people around me were like, "Wait, we trained him?" And
Yes.
I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a whole other story. We were just not going to talk about it. And so,
He's like a double
because I
agent. You
think
know what I
of,
mean?
yeah, but the thing is too, is we're not the only sport that it's that way. I mean, track and field is the same way. There are tons of Jamaicans that go and run at Oregon and numerous other
There's a
places.
lot in Austin. Austin is
Yeah.
like the Olympic capital of the world in track and
Yeah.
field and swimming right now.
Yeah, so I mean, like, I think it's probably more so prevalent in individual sports than it is the
It
team
has to be,
sports
yeah.
because it's a lot harder to get on an American college soccer team or football team or whatever have you. With individual sports, obviously, like the training is based upon you.
Right.
So, we're not the only sport by far that has this, but I also think it's going to get more interesting, which we'll talk about that in another episode, but with NIL money and things like
Yes.
that, that's a very American way of life now. And I think it's going to make a big difference when it comes to bringing, over other
Talent.
swimmers, track
Yeah.
athletes, whatever. It's gonna be very different. That's gonna shift to what we'll have in 4 years in LA. So let's go to our picks. Let's
Okay.
go to our list.
All right. Let's start off with top female swimmer of the meet.
Mhm.
Top female. Who do you have down as top female swimmer of the meet? Just realize that Swimming World Magazine and Swim Sam have both picked the same person. Let's see what you come up with.
So mine, I know where most people are gonna go and who they're gonna pick, and she would be fully deserving of it also.
Who is
Um,
that?
Tori Husk.
You.
But
That's who you picked?
no, that's not who I picked.
No, that's not. That's nobody I've heard has picked her as swimmer of the meet.
That's a shame because I really see I haven't seen swim and
Yeah, but
swimming.
here's the interesting thing. So I coached with a former Canadian two-time Olympic finalist,
Mhm.
right? And his one beef with the medal count, and when you're counting up for swimmer of the meet and everything, is the U.S. always has the best swimmers. Australia and the U.S., if you count their relays in the count, then she has 5 medals,
Yeah,
right? And so if she has 5 medals, but 2 of those are relays or 3 of those are relays,
right.
right? So she has two individuals and she has three relays. So if you look at that, you're like, well, she won 5 medals. She should be swimmer. Well, she's also depending on an awful lot of talent to get her those other medals as well.
Right.
Whereas other individuals that do really well that can't do relays. I mean, look at Mershon for a second. I mean, he has
Yes.
4 Olympic golds and then 1 bronze because why? Well, the relay got a bronze, which was really great
Yes.
for France. So, okay,
Yes.
so Husk is out just because of the relay thing, the bias
Yeah.
there. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Mine's Ledecky.
Really?
Mine is Ledecky because there was no other, when you think about it, there was no other race that you watched individually with females that an individual was that far ahead
Right,
of someone. There was no one in the screen. She has dominated those distance events for so long.
right,
And to be a distance swimmer is, like you said, I always see being a distance swimmer as a chess match. It is so much harder to keep your body healthy, to keep yourself up and going, because there is, long breaks in between each individual event that you do. You're not on relays that get you up and racing all the time. Like, she, by far, to be at the age that she is as a swimmer and then go out and dominate in the way that she did in those events that are her core events, I she's it for me, because I think it's kind of, I compare her to Simone Biles. I think both of them right now at this Olympics, we got to see leadership out of them
right,
as being these top level performing females that for so long the sports really have not had that domination in. And both of them, I combined the two of them, because you got to watch them lift others up. You got to watch them be humble when they lost, but dominate in the things that they were so good at. And
right,
with me, with Ledecky, it was that domination factor that there was not a single other female in that pool that did what she did in that event. There was no, I mean, sprints, we always know it's hundreds of a second, right? But even then, there wasn't any crazy world record out of them that somebody,
right.
smashed. It was by hundreds. It wasn't, no one did what she did.
Okay.
So that's why she's my female. Okay,
Oh,
you do
okay.
yours.
So everybody else is saying Summer McIntosh. 2 Olympic records, 2 junior world records, 3 golds individually, 1 silver on the relay. So the way that I looked at it, and I lean towards Summer. And this is the way that I looked at it. If this was Ledecky's first Olympics, just like
Yeah,
it was Summer
yeah,
McIntosh,
McIntosh.
I keep stumbling on that. But anyways, and you compare them at the meet, Summer McIntosh showed up, got 3 golds. That's the highest that you have. And if you look
Yeah,
at the record, she did get the records. You know what I mean?
right.
So I think you go there. You have Kaylee McCowan. She has 2 golds, 1 silver, 2 bronze, but 3 of those are relays. 2 or 3 of those are relays. She has the 200. She gets a silver in. 400 gets a gold in. 800 free relay. She gets a gold in, and then she gets 2 bronze on the mixed medley and the regular women's medley. So that's only 2. So I would put Katie Ledecky ahead of her. So now
Yeah,
it's between Katie Ledecky and Summer McIntosh. But then I also look at Sarah Sorenstrom. She doesn't have a relay chance. She gets 2 golds. She
yeah,
set some records, and she's 30 years old. And at
right.
that age, to come in and set an Olympic record, I can't remember if she set the Olympic record in the 100 or not. That's pretty impressive to me. If
Yeah.
you're going to go with Ledecky, then I'm going to go with Shortstrom.
See, Nordstrom was
That
they
was your
were right there
second. But
together.
I
It
mean,
was my second.
I honestly think if everybody, okay, so the way you look at Ledecky over her whole career, because you say, well, she won 4 golds in the same thing. Well, yeah, but that's also taken into account other performances ahead of time,
Right,
right? So if we're talking about long term, like greatest of all time, greatest woman swimmer of all time, all that kind of stuff, definitely Ledecky. That's not even a question right now, and
right.
it won't be a question for a long time, right?
Yeah.
She's there. But if you just look at this one time, I think you have Summer McIntosh, and then you have Ledecky, and then you have Shorstrom. 1, 2, 3. Gold,
See,
silver,
now
bronze.
that's my thing with McIntosh, is that it's the same thing that I'm like, if she wasn't training in the US fully at this age, even because she's young, right?
Yeah,
She's
she's only 18 years old, 17
right.
years
Then
old.
I'm like, you didn't even give it time. That's again why I was like, I like the ones that, have trained with their nation. They represent it. Same with the Chinese and Japan and
You
all
are
of them
such
at
an
a
old
PB.
soul.
I think that's the only old soul that I am, just because like to the Olympics, like if it's NC2As, right? I'm like, do it. But
Right.
when it comes to the Olympics, it's representation of your country and like
Yes.
that you are born and bred there, and that is like something that you were raised in that country. It's very, you're proud to be where you're from. So I struggle with that a lot. And again, maybe it's the college swimmer in me because that's a discussion for later, but like it's just the matter of like I appreciate when athletes came from their countries, trained in their countries, tried to move their sport forward in their countries because they didn't have the training facilities,
Right.
that they figured out a way to try and help their own country move forward. The United States, we're spoiled. We've had it
Yes.
everything. We're very spoiled, but I love seeing Olympians that you see the pictures of them training on their streets and doing everything that they can to get their country forward. Again, Brazil, there's a lot of Brazilians, Cubans, that's just to me, that's my heart and soul of the Olympics. Those are the stories that I love
Right.
that when you say moving the sport forward, they're not going somewhere else to get it. They're figuring out how to move their sport forward in their country so they can build it for their country. So
Yeah,
anyway,
but on the other end of that, just last thing, we'll put a button in this, and then I have a question for you. COVID is why Summer McIntosh came down to the United States, because Florida was open and Canada shut everything down. So they kind
right.
of forced her out. Like
Yeah.
Canada goes, yeah, you're ours, but we're not going to allow you to swim anymore. So you might as
Yeah.
well go someplace else. So
Right.
forget Canada there.
Yeah.
Number two, if that's the case, then Mershon, he is not your swimmer of the meet then. You're like, he's not the swimmer of the meet. Four individual gold medals, and he is not your male swimmer of the meet. I can't wait to hear who it is, because you have to apply the same,
Hmm.
the same. So you don't have Leon Mochon down as a swimmer of the meet for the men.
Well, so again, like we have very different philosophies in who we chose because you're clearly going off of like
Results. I'm
yeah,
going off results.
right. You're going off the results and the golds and not like individual performances
So you're going
in
to go Bobby Fink because he set the world record, and that's going to be the end of it. If your distance bias is going to come in,
it
go
is.
USA. Okay.
It is because again, like I sit there and I'm going, and Marshawn was like, he's my second. But my thing with Marshawn was, he number one, we obviously know he outperformed everybody.
Yeah.
And it was his home turf. So that was amazing. Again, he's my second, but with Fink, it was just one of those things where the amount that he won by,
Yeah.
and it's easy to say it, again, because distance races, you're more likely to win by more than you would in a sprint race. But we've seen it in sprint races too, where it's like somebody just shows up and just cranks it.
Well,
And
well, Pan from China did that.
yeah,
Like at the end of that, everybody's pointing at the scoreboard going, how did he go that fast when you go
yeah,
46
yeah, yeah.
from a flat
So
start?
yeah. But again, I go with Bobby Fink because to do that on the last day of the Olympics, to win by that much, and in an event that no one thought he was going to break the world record in it.
Nobody, yeah.
Honest.
Yeah, that's
No
true.
one thought he was even going to be close to it. We were like,
We didn't think, everybody was 4, 5, 6 seconds away from it. Like they weren't even close.
correct.
He came in, his best time on that year is 15 or 14 seconds slower than the world record.
Yeah. And when I look at everybody else, I'm going, even Marshad, the record that he broke of Michael Phelps's, right? It wasn't like it was 2 seconds. It
Right.
wasn't this massive, like everyone knew he was going to be close to it, or he was going to get it. But I mean, it was the best performance to me, hands down, of the Olympics of any swimmer. It was phenomenal. And people are going to be talking about that for years to come, that he was able to do that on the last day. So, yeah, he's mine. Sorry, America. That's that's where
America.
I'm at.
So as the resident homer, good job. At least you were consistent. I'll give you credit for
Yes.
that. You were very consistent with
Yes.
that. But I think that you also looked at it from performance of the meet makes the swimmer of the meet. And
Yeah.
I'm saying, okay, let's look at it overall, which is how most people look at it, right? Like who performed best. Mershon walks away with it. There's no doubt
Yep.
about it. But then I have Bobby Fink as second and Pon as third because of the world records that they broke and how
Yeah.
they did it. I can make an argument for Bobby Fink being, performance of the meet, but I think you give it to Mershon going away with 4 individual gold medals. Remember, he did the 200 fly, 200 breast back to back.
Right.
And
Correct.
so, I mean, that's incredible. That hasn't happened in how many years? Since the 70s. So I thought that was pretty good. So, I mean, I just like that you're consistent. Good job. That was well.
Thanks.
Medal count, looking at that, just kind of tallying everything up, we crushed it overall. I had this up earlier. I don't know where it's at, but we win the gold medal 8-7. We had like 29 medals across the board. That was pretty good. It was the lowest performance that we had. The highest
Yeah.
on the women's side would have been 2008 in Beijing. The minutes I think was about the same because of what Phelps did in 2008. So that was fine. All right. So what you've already talked about your best race. Your best race was
Yeah.
it the mile or the 800 free relay? I mean, the 800 free with Katie Ledecky. Do you think that even comes close?
No, it was Bobby thing. It was, I mean, that
Right.
that was it. There was just nothing to compare to it. And the fact of the matter is, even though you bring up Ledecky at the 800, right?
I was on pins and
Her face,
needles.
her face during Bobby's race tells you
Yes.
everything.
True.
She knew, the capacity of what he was doing.
Right.
And so, by far it's him. It was just amazing. It was something that distance coaches are going to talk about for a very long time.
Right.
And again, to me, like I I think he's such a good person. I think he's such a good representation of the sport. And, he's not a showman. You don't see him pounding his chest. You never see him like he reminds me of so many swimmers that I have coached in my lifetime.
Right.
Because we're unique, we're weird,
You're weird. I'm not.
you're weird.
Just talking
But
to my kids. I'm weird. It's not a
but
problem.
I mean, we're just a different breed. And he talks about all of the time that, like, I don't know if you heard this, how he keeps calm. Did you hear him?
No,
Do you
I didn't
know
hear
how he
this.
keeps Legos?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
There is no more, of the kind of person he is, that he loves Legos. And when my daughter heard that, she's like, "Yes, I get it. I get it. Yeah."
Yes. Yeah, I'm gonna
And I
tell
was
my
like,
son that because he does Legos every day. Like my
"Mhm."
9-year-old son and him could get along.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, that was my
So
racing.
that's your favorite race of
Mhm.
of the meet. My favorite race was the women's medley relay. I mean,
Yeah.
I could go with the 1500 as well, but I'm not going to pick the same one you did. Women's medley relay crushed it across the board.
Mhm.
We already talked about the splits and everything else. Okay, so that's there. That's our favorites. But what is the best race? Like what was got you the not the closest, most nervous, nerve wrack, whatever you want to put onto it. What was the best race of the meet for you? And if you're not sure, I can go first.
Yeah, go first.
Okay, so I wrote down 6. Like I wrote down. So I have Bobby Fink in the 1500. I have the women's medley relay, the 100 freestyle going 46.5 or whatever it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was great, and we also showed up on that one. It was great. Any of the Sorenstrom 50 or 100, I think the 100 freestyle for her was one of
Yeah.
my favorite races to watch
Yeah.
because she just owned it and she didn't think, remember, she wasn't going to enter it. Her coach talked her into it. Well, at least I can make the final. We'll see what happens. She didn't think she was, and her face even showed it. In the interview, she showed it. She didn't think she was going to win the gold medal. I think the 100 fly or the 200 fly for the men would be my favorite race just because of how Mershon came back and did that one. And then on the other side of that, I think that the 800 freestyle for Ledecky, just her and Titmus stroke for so
Yeah.
long, and knowing that Titmus has a better last 100 than
Yep.
Ledecky does because Ledecky's full out. And the way that the chest mass went about the 550 mark to 600, she just took off and won it by a body length. I would say the 200 fly for the men and the 800 free for the women were the ones where I was the most anxious and couldn't believe what was going on and nervous about it.
Yeah, well, again, I mean, I was gonna go with 800 free because obviously my distance heart of like,
Right.
I think it makes it worse progressively during the Olympics because they're like, especially on Peacock, they would have it going and then they would have a commercial going on.
Yeah.
The side. They would do like, and it just angered me that I was like, really, we're not important enough for you to keep it up on the big screen that you need to put a commercial on because
Right.
oh, this is boring. So yeah, I mean. Ledecky's 800 free to me. Genuinely, at any of Marshad's races to me,
We're
I
impressive.
thought were exciting because again, it was like getting to see new blood and
Yes.
getting to see something new coming out of that generation. Um, and obviously, like I said, I really want my daughter to marry him eventually, so that was part of it too. uh so I'm like, he's a cute kid, he's a nice kid. Like, I loved so much, and this goes into why his races were some of my favorite too, was because I said this in an earlier part of the podcast that he was one of the only ones that was behind the blocks before his races smiling.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, he was enjoying
Every minute of it.
every moment of it. And I think so many times we lose that it, from a coaching perspective, our kids watch all of these athletes in their zone with their headphones on and like, that they're not looking around and they're so intense. And like, to watch him smiling and laughing before he gets up on the block and then him dominate, that was that was amazing.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
you
I
know,
mean that brings us into the second portion of what we want to talk about because we're a podcast for coaches, athletes, and swimmers, and parents. So coaches,
yeah.
athletes, and parents. So, and you just talked about it from an athlete point of view a little bit there. It's coaches when you're looking at this, what kind of athlete do you want your kids to be? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And I talked to the athletes when I was at zones and other places. What's the one thing that the research shows that Olympic athletes, elite athletes, what do they talk about at the meets? And the answer is not swimming.
Yep.
And if you're having fun, you're going to perform a whole lot better. So stop putting the pressure, try to help them alleviate the pressure.
Yep.
And we're really focused on club swimming. So you have age groupers and you have early senior swimmers trying to get the pressure off and teaching them the skills to smile, to
Right.
enjoy it. It reminds me of Neil Versfeld, who's the head coach at Georgia now. When he was a swimmer at Georgia, he and I had a conversation. I was doing a study and I said, "What's the point of competing? What's the point of competition?" And he said, "To compete." I said, "Well, okay, let's define it." He goes, "No, I don't want to define it with a different word." That's
Yep.
exactly what it is. It's not about winning. It's about setting a goal and accomplishing the goal. Now, maybe that is winning, but I have
Yeah.
to compete. And so I get up on the block next to you and we race. And then when we finish, if I win, I shake your hand and you say to me, "I'll get you next time." If I don't win, but I gave my best, then I shake your hand and I say, "I'll get you next time." And I figure out how to get faster.
Yep.
Right? That's the point. And if we as coaches are actually instilling that instead of the pressure of the moment, instead of what the accomplishment means, instead of, "Hey, if you do this, you'll make this team, or if you do this, you're going to get this reward at the end," some coaches put their own ego in there. If I can get
Yeah.
them to win this, then I get to put the medal on their neck and I get to say congratulations and look at me. We've got to, as clubs coaches, we have to move beyond that. We have to move
Right.
beyond that. And I think
Right.
he's a great example of moving beyond that.
Definitely. And I will even use the example because before that last relay with the women, I had people that and again, even Evie made the comment, Tori Husk was behind there yawning.
Yes.
She was yawn, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, we're gonna tank." And I was like, "Nope."
Nope. She did that for
And
every race.
and that's, a prime example of this. I tell my athletes all the time that I'm like, I will never be mad at you for yawning behind the block because everyone knows yawning actually means that you're relaxed most of the time.
Yes.
And yawning is not a bad thing. And so, and I just thought it was really funny because she was just like, she was continually yawning. And it probably is. It'd be interesting to see if it's one of her relax mechanisms that she makes herself yawn behind the block to get her body to relax and get in just no pressure mode.
We'll find out because the next time we go to meets, we're going to be looking
Yeah.
at all the
Yeah.
swimmers
A little
yawning
court.
when they get behind the meet. It's going to be a
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
but I mean, she's kind of like my breakout swimmer of the meet
Mhm.
she's going to be great to watch, and she'll be in a leadership role. What other advice would you give coaches based upon what we watched at the Olympics?
Yeah. I think what a lot of coaches don't, and maybe they did if they were watching, but when you get to these upper level meets, and this is for club coaches, most of the time you are not
Clean
even
deck,
close to the side of the deck.
right?
You're up in the stands. Sometimes you're about like 10 feet away from the side of the pool deck. So, most of the time, those swimmers, it's very rare that they're actually able to see or hear their coaches like what
Right,
you're used to in a club setting, that you can walk up and down a deck or you can give hand signals or whatever your source might be. Um, so a lot of times I think that something to take from the Olympics is the fact that, you say this all the time on the podcast to coaches, is that when you give your swimmers the right tools during practices and, pre-meet stuff, when they get up there behind the block, there is absolutely nothing that you are going to say or do that is going to change what is about
right,
to happen whenever they get in, whenever they dive in. And even any last minute advice that you give to them, they're not, most of the time they're not really going to comprehend that,
right,
because they have already work themselves to the point of what they're capable of achieving at that point. So, when you look at all of these coaches' reactions and the things that they're doing, I mean, a lot of them were in like the tip top of the stands because they were wanting to get a good view from it.
right,
So, I think that's my advice to the coaches is really take from this that these athletes, if you do the right things prior to walking onto that meet pool deck, those kids are going to swim lights out.
right.
Telling them 9 billion different things right before they go up to race most of the time does not work.
Now,
And it's better for you to say, you got this. I believe in you. Go get them.
go
Do
fast.
what you know how to do. Go.
Yes,
Because most of the time that's what relaxes them, because it shows them that you believe in them and you believe in the work that they've done,
right.
and it allows them to just kind of clear their minds before they go. So that would be my one thing for coaches that I hope that you were watching, was just what those Olympic coaches were doing, how they were reacting, because in the end it really does, your coaching will speak for itself, good or bad.
Right.
once once the athlete is done, and any last minute in the 15 minutes before they swim isn't going to do a whole lot. So, just do the work that needs to be done, those little things that you're seeing. I think the big thing as a coach that I would say probably came out of this Olympics that's going to be played over and over again, is Alex Walsh's DQ,
Yeah.
unfortunately. I think as coaches, it's one of those things that I heard a lot of coaches saying, well, that's exactly why I don't teach my club swimmers a crossover turn.
Yeah.
I can speak for myself when I say that I work off of, once I know that they are good with doing a great touch and go turn, then I will introduce a crossover
Right.
turn.
Yeah. Of course.
So there's a lot of my swimmers that I haven't introduced you to yet. And now I can say personally, I am going to be using this video as a learning tool
Right.
to say, this is what we mean by you cannot be past vertical. Here is slow motion of why she got called and how you need to learn how to do this.
Right.
So, we all know that that's going to be used. That would be my feedback from a coaching perspective of the couple of things that we could learn off of it.
Yeah, and I'll go back to what you said before the DQ, which is I think a lot of times, especially with age group coaches, we have young swimmers and we need to give them the reminder so they don't get DQ'd or something along those lines. And that's fine. You can remind them at warm up and maybe
Yeah.
get up there. Hey, 2 hand touches on the turn.
Right.
You know, 10 and
That's
under.
one thing.
That's one thing. So that's not. But again, I see coaches running up and down the sides of the pool, whistling, going because they feel as though is they're not doing that somehow their swimmer is not going to race as hard. And we do know that, you give them a go and suddenly they speed up, they get out of whatever mode they are and they're going to go. But it's almost better to let them fail a little bit or not do
Yeah.
as well and let them learn the skills so that they can solve the problem themselves. And
Right.
also, you just get in the way of everybody else. It just drives me
Yeah.
crazy.
But
But
and I mean the other thing is it doesn't mean you can't be excited for them, right? Like
no,
that's
of
not what we're
course.
saying at all. Like if it's a
I
close
whistle the
race,
whole time.
right, and you want to go nuts and you know that they're doing like by all means. But like you said, the running up and down the pool deck. I mean,
Right.
there is times I will admit,
I've done
and
it. Yeah.
yeah, and I will admit, Nick Graves and I, this is a shout out to Nick. We're both distance loves, and there has been times where he's been on one side of the pool deck and I've been on the other, where we have when no one else, because our swimmers are in the last heats of the mile and no one
Right.
is on the pool deck, that we will do that because we know they're close to a cut or something like
Yeah,
that. But
I get that.
you know,
But at the same time, the problem that I find is a lot of coaches, they'll do something. Okay, so it's the same way that a swimmer gets a routine. They'll do something, that swimmer does better, they'll do it again, another swimmer does better, and suddenly it's about the coach. And I'm going
right.
to coach them up while they're in the water, and I'm going to make the difference for them, and I'm going to help them out. And suddenly you insert yourself into the meet.
Yep.
It's really not about you and what you did. Like, be excited for the swimmer.
Yes.
Jump up and down for them, whistle at them, and do that kind of stuff. But just remember, they're the ones that are doing the performance, not you. You're doing your job. Your job is at practice and warm up. Their job is at practice, warm up, and then in the race. And
And
yes, you can
again,
you can influence it a
yep.
little bit, but really, if you've done your job, you don't have a lot to do at the meet. And stop inserting ourselves into the
And it
races.
goes back to we all know, if they go and swim in college, it's the same thing. A lot of those meets, the coaches cannot be right up next to the pool deck. There are some pools that they can be right there, but most of the time when they get to NC2As, there's a wall
There's
just
a
like you
wall. I mean,
saw.
you're still there. You know what I mean?
Right,
You can still, but
right.
you can't move up and down the
You're
pole.
not
You're,
running
you're
up and
locked
down the
in.
pool.
Yeah, you're locked in. You're shoulder to
Right.
shoulder locked in.
Like
There's no
there is
doubt.
that's what I mean. Like you are not running up and down that pool deck. So I mean, you got to set your swimmers up for the reality of as they get faster, what those meets are going to be like,
Right.
and all of those things and still be excited
But
for
I
them.
mean,
Like
still
you
at
said.
futures, you can be there. Juniors, you can be there a little bit. But again, it's shoulder to shoulder. You're not
Yeah.
going to have the influence. But, it's, again, it's extrapolating down from the elite of the elite down to, a club swimming. But as a coach, you give them the skills, they're going to be much more successful because it gives them confidence. To the athletes, I'm going to take the first one here. The one thing that you should take away from the Olympics is resilience.
Yeah.
There were some good nights, there were some hard nights, but you look at it, let's take Bobby Fink, for example. 800, he gets out touched. He waited too long. He adapts and then breaks the world record.
Yep.
He was probably in a position where he could have contended for the world record if he had switched things up, but there was no reason to. And I
Yeah.
think the 800 forced him into the 1500, but his confidence never changed. Who he
Yep.
was never changed. And so many times, swimmers, I see you at age group meets, I see you at senior states, I see you at futures, I see you at junior. If you have a swim or two that's off, the next day you're done for the meet
Yep.
because
Yep.
you don't have confidence that I've done the work. I am tapered and ready to go. I just had a bad race. Let me move on. And that's
Right.
what you saw all these swimmers. It's like I have to win in order to feel good about myself. And you don't. Just take one race at a time and be resilient.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, that's what I was actually going to say was going to be my feedback was you watched world class athletes that are heroes of so many swimmers, crumble and have bad races
Right.
and, cry If you let one bad race, one bad start, one bad turn, one whatever dictate all of those months of hard work that you have done, you will never fully be a success in this sport.
Right.
And, so I say to the athletes, go and watch those mistakes that they made. Go and watch those hard races. Go back and view them
Tons of mistakes.
because
Tons of mistakes.
I say to go and watch, because you even heard me say the heartbreak of Lily King,
Right.
watching that, of Caleb Dressel, of these greats, and watching that heartbreak, but then watching how they dealt with it and then how they turned it around.
Right.
And the one person, again, I will go back to what I said before, that I really want to everybody to watch what happens after this is Alex Walsh.
Right.
I want everyone to see what she does after this, how she goes from here, what she decides to do. Because if you recall, when Caleb Dressel knew he needed to walk away and he
Right.
needed time, and it wasn't because of a DQ on his, he was just burnt out. But when he walked away, everybody thought, oh my gosh, he just pulled out. It was Worlds, right? That he pulled out of.
I think so.
Um,
Yeah.
I think that, everyone was like, how could Caleb Dressel pull out of this? What? So watch her. Watch where she
Right.
goes from here and how she handles this, and the interviews when she finally decides to talk. Listen to what she has to say. Because I think it will help you as a swimmer understand that there's going to be great days and there's going to be real bad days, but that doesn't dictate who you are as an athlete by
Right.
any means.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories we could tell just out of knowing people. DQ here, national champion the next year, et
Yeah.
cetera, et cetera. The and I agree with you. We can. I mean, Milok from Hungary loses in the 200 fly by getting outpaced, out tempoed by Marchand, and then he comes back and does the exact same thing to other swimmers in the 100 and takes it hard. He was like sixth or seventh at the wall at the 50, and then just outpaced everybody coming back. So
Yeah.
even in there, like I said, there's tons of mistakes. Touches here, this you can't control everything. So you
Yeah.
just have to have confidence in yourself. So build your confidence up. The other thing that I would say swimmers take away is sportsmanship.
Yes.
The amount of sportsmanship and collegiality that you saw here, I don't think I saw anybody really. I mean, I think the only one that you could point to is Milok. Like he wins the gold and then skips the interviews, and that was a little bit strange. But I think he was so whatever was going on with him between the 200 and the 100, he knew himself enough that for sportsmanship reason, he took himself out. Alex Walsh takes herself out of the media.
Right.
Why? Because they want to show well for themselves and for their country and everybody else. And
Yes.
sometimes if you have a bad swim, don't smack the water and get all huffy and puffy. Go to the warm down, warm it down. If you can't talk about it, don't talk about it. And I think the sportsmanship with Ledecky pulling Madden up, I mean, like that was unbelievable,
Yes.
bringing her up and saying, okay, we need to be, let's go side by side.
Yeah.
So just look at the sportsmanship and how everybody worked together. That's what you want to go for. Parents, what do we say to parents about all this?
I'll go back to the same thing. When a swimmer has been loved and in control of their destiny, that the parents have not intervened, that the parents have not, you know, tried to push them when they were not ready, by watching the reactions of those athletes when they win their first gold medal, when they win their first Olympic medal. They were looking for their families to go and
Right.
hug them. They were, celebrating little wins, and this is going to be tough for some people to hear me say this, but my prime example of not allowing not knowing when it was time to separate a swimmer from a parent is Michael Andrew.
Right.
And what reminded me of that was because they showed a picture of him, on the winning medal stand from the last Olympics. He did not make the Olympic team this year.
Right.
And I always have looked at that situation and said,
And that's where his dad's the coach. His
yeah,
coach.
his dad is his coach. And I use that as a situation of saying, what could that individual be without that that parent trying to make him something that probably would be better off of a coach being that way. So I say that because, I always we say all the time, I want to be Michael Phelps's mom. Like
Right. Yeah.
that is who I want to be to my daughter. And I say that because the parents that you see that are the moms that are just cheering with their daughters and and
Right.
their siblings, and you see like Ryan Murphy's family was a big one that like they just and what's his name, Fink, Bobby,
Yes.
they interviewed Bobby Fink's, sisters during half of the races, and like you could see the love that
Right.
was there and the support that was there, and that they were happy no matter what. And so again, it goes back to love your kids, just love them, don't coach them, don't push them, let them be in control of their journey, and just be there to feed them and tell them you love them and you're proud of them, whether they're gold medal Olympians or
Right.
not, because that's how they're going to get there, is knowing that they have you as that parent and not that pressure.
Right. I mean, I think if we're looking at it from a club level, you have little kids and you have junior swimmers and you have senior swimmers. And as they move up, the parents get more and more outside of the choices. I mean, think about the choices that were at the Olympics. Alex Walsh decides not to swim the 100 free so she can focus on the 200 IM. A parent gets involved there. That's happened before. I know of a swimmer. I can't think of her name right now, but she always came up as a 200 breaststroker, but she would be top 6 in the 200 free. They were on the same night. And the dad stepped in and said, "You're not going to do this." And the daughter said, "Okay, dad, that's fine." And he goes, "She's a breaststroker," even though she never made an Olympic team, but she would have made the Olympic team if they had switched it over. But that's between the coach and the parent and everything. It just gums everything up.
Yeah.
And if you look at some of the decisions, like Nesty changing up the him and Bobby Fink changing up the way that they swam. If a parent gets involved and is in that decision making, it just gums everything up. You've got to let that go. And the earlier you let it go, the better it is for your swimmer.
Yes.
And then the second thing is there's an article out, I forget who published it, but Pavinsky, of Romania, he talks about his parents when he was like 9 years old. He used to go behind the Y and like goof around, but nobody was saying like, "Hey, you need to do this." He
Yeah.
did it for fun. And it's
Yep.
always been fun. He's been highly successful. He's highly talented and all this other stuff. But that's where parents, sometimes the highly talented are the ones that get involved more because they want the most for their
Yep.
kids. Don't let them swim for fun. They'll get to where they want to go. And the
Yep.
third thing, I think, and this will be the end of this whole section, is if you look at the parents' reactions after the gold medal and they come down and they're right there with their child, with their Olympic medalist, and what they're saying. If you watch the women's 400 medley relay, Gretchen Walsh comes down, her parents are right there. The dad gives her a hug and says, "Go have fun." You can read the lips, "Go have fun tonight."
Yeah.
Like you go with your that's you, and we're celebrating you, and we can
Yeah.
do that on our own, but you go have fun tonight. You go and celebrate this. You go with your teammates, you go with your coaches, because I understand my role is I'm the supporter, I'm the one that helps you get here. I've done everything I can for you, but you took the torch and I gave you the skills so that you can go and make the decisions with your coaches, and your coaches gave you the skills in the pool. I helped you out of the pool, and then all meshed together. Now you go do you. It's not about the parent. It's not about the coach. It's about the athlete and how we support them together. And I think
Definitely.
that was the big thing, is just watching all the positivity that was there, which is really good. So that wraps up the Olympic coverage. It's been a long 10 days between the
Yes.
opening ceremonies and everything else. Go back and watch everything that we said, see where we're right, see all the places where we were wrong, and a little bit biased toward the US. Jen, thanks so much. And then again, this is Swimmed, which is education for athletes, coaches, or for coaches, athletes, and parents. We're the only podcast dedicated to club swimming. I look forward to continuing our conversations about club swimming as we move beyond the Olympics.
Yep. We will see you all very soon.
All right,
Go
take care.
USA.
USA, let's go.